Can we get back up in 560 now?
Chill out, dude. Taking it.
I just want this guy to know that you had no right to put your hands on my daughter and murder my daughter and my grandson the way you did. You had no right to do that. If she didn't want you no more, you should have left her alone. So, where's my grandson? What did you do to my grandson? When you go to that prison, you will talk. And when you do, I'll be waiting. I want to know what really happened to my grandson. And you had no right to do that to my daughter, Deshaun Brown, at all. And you finally got what you deserved. I hope you never see the light of day again, ever.
Cincinnati 911, what is the address of your emergency?
I found a dead body. Somebody threw a bag, like on the edge of the bridge. And my curiosity got the best of me. So I got up there and knocked it down. And it was heavy. It hit the ground. It's like a body bag.
That 911 call was made in the early hours of December 12, 2020 by a security guard who stumbled across something on the ledge of a bridge in Cincinnati, Ohio. He did not know it yet, but what was inside that bag was a 29-year-old mother named Nitisha Lattimore, who had been stabbed 11 times and left for dead 6 days earlier by the man she had opened her home to. And the most disturbing part of this whole story is not even what he did to her. It is what he did to her 3-year-old son the morning after he murdered her, and why he did any of it in the first place. Nitisha Lou Lattimore was born on November 8, 1991, right there in Cincinnati. By the time she reached her late 20s, she had built herself a real life in a Walnut Hills apartment on Melrose Avenue, which is one of the older, well-known neighborhoods in Cincinnati. She was a certified nurse, meaning she spent her whole working day looking after other people, and the moment she got home, that same love and energy went straight to her children. Her family remembered her as what they called a firecracker. They described her as full of energy, really smart, and just full of life. She loved fashion and singing along to Rob songs. Nitisha was the type to ask so many questions that her own brother would eventually beg her to chill out. She had older sons too, but her youngest, little Nilo, held a very special place in her heart. Her family says she used to take him everywhere just to show him off because he was such a beautiful child. Her Aunt Nicole, who would babysit him often, remembered how Nilo used to hold his mother's face in his tiny hands and just kiss her. Those two were truly inseparable. Now, the important thing to understand here is that Nitisha was doing all of this completely on her own. She was independent and self-sufficient, and by everything we know about her, she did not lean on anyone else to take care of herself or her kids. And as we are going to see, that independence of hers was one of the main things that pushed the man in her life completely over the edge. That man was Deshaun Brown. He and Nitisha had met on the dating app Tinder, and somewhere before December of 2020, their relationship had already ended. Brown was from Montgomery County in Ohio and was only 20 years old at the time all of this went down. He was temporarily staying in her apartment while he figured out where he was going to go next. She had shown him kindness even after they broke up by letting him stay there, but also made it real clear that the situation was not going to last. The arrangement was only temporary, and he needed to find his own place soon. For a guy like Brown, who had no job, no stable place, and nothing to show for himself, hearing that from her was apparently more than he could handle. Now, here is the part that did not come out until much later in the case. Nitisha had suffered a miscarriage while she was pregnant with Brown's child. A miscarriage, which is something that happens naturally to a woman's body and is not something she chooses or controls. But Brown did not see it that way at all. Brown believed Nitisha had killed his baby, and that this belief was what pushed him to start planning revenge against her. Brown had been talking about going through with this for up to 2 months before anything actually happened. That one detail right there should tell you everything you need to know about the kind of person Deshaun Brown really is. And while we are on the subject of who Brown was at this time, it is also worth noting that he had open warrants on him and had already missed 2 court dates as part of a probation he was on for a misdemeanor assault charge back in Montgomery County. On December 5th of 2020, neighbors on Melrose Avenue reported that they heard what sounded like a fight coming from Nitisha's apartment. That was the night everything changed for this family forever, and what happened inside that apartment is something that is not easy to hear. Brown stabbed Nitisha 11 times in the neck, and those stab wounds were so deep and brutal that they tore through her carotid artery, which is the main blood vessel in the neck. So much blood poured out of that apartment that it literally went through the floor and started leaking into the apartment directly below, where the neighbors eventually found it coming through their ceiling. After doing all of that, Brown did not run, call for help, or show any sign of panic whatsoever. What he did instead was pick up Nitisha's phone, log into her Facebook account, and post a message pretending to be her, writing, "I love him forever, Deshaun Brown," as if she were still alive and had just put up a sweet post about him. After that, he went online and started looking up how to clean blood off surfaces. He stripped the bed, tried to make the apartment look like nothing had happened there, and then just stayed. Little Nilo was still in that apartment the whole time. The very next morning, December 6th, Brown put little Nilo into his stroller and started walking. Phone records from that same time period show that Brown had been searching for Cincinnati bridges on his phone. He went straight to the Purple People Bridge, which is the bridge that crosses the Ohio River between Cincinnati and Newport, Kentucky, and he threw Nilo, who was still alive and still strapped into his stroller, over the edge and into the freezing water below. The Ohio River in December is ice cold with a current that is strong enough to carry a grown adult away, and Nilo was only 3 years old. And then for the next 5 days, Brown went right back to that apartment and stayed there. He was living with Nitisha's body for nearly a full week, coming and going from the building like things were normal, trying to clean up the blood and still using her phone to keep up appearances to the outside world. Then on December 11th, Brown made his next move. He had already bought a body bag off of eBay during the days after the murder. Brown put Nitisha's body inside it, carried it out of the apartment and downstairs, and called himself an Uber. When the driver pulled up, Brown loaded the heavy bag into the car and told the driver it was just clothes and stuff from a fight he had with his girlfriend. The driver later told investigators that Brown was acting shaky and smelled like he had been drinking, but had no reason at that point to think anything was actually wrong. The Uber dropped Brown off at the same Purple People Bridge where he had thrown Nilo 6 days before, and he tried to throw Nitisha's body into the river from there as well. But the bag didn't make it all the way over. It caught on a ledge just below the railing, and Brown just left it there and walked away. In the early hours of December 12th, a security guard who was working the overnight shift at a construction site near the bridge spotted something hanging off that ledge.
Cincinnati 911, what is the address for your emergency?
I found a dead body. Somebody threw a bag like on the edge of the bridge, and my curiosity got the best of me, so I got up there and knocked it down, and it was heavy. It hit the ground. It's like a body bag.
That guard told the 911 dispatcher that he first figured it might be some kind of Halloween prop or costume stuff, but the second he touched the bag, he knew that what was inside was real. Cincinnati police got to the scene fast, and within hours they had traced everything back to the apartment on Melrose Avenue, where they found Brown still around the area. He was brought in and taken to the station for questioning that same day. That interrogation went on for 10 full hours. Brown denied everything from the jump, but detectives were already tearing his story apart piece by piece. They had the phone records, the surveillance footage, the Uber driver's account, the Facebook posts made from Nitisha's account after she was already gone, and the eBay receipt for the body bag, and all of it was pointing directly at him. At one point, detectives called him out for claiming he had talked to Nitisha on the phone after her body had already been found, and he had nothing to say to that. When they asked him where Nilo was, he barely flinched. While all of that was happening at the station, Nilo's father, Antonio Hughes, had already reported the boy missing, and family members were out on foot searching the Walnut Hills neighborhood themselves. Nilo's aunt even called 911 after she and other family members came across a garbage can near the apartment that had what looked like shower curtains soaked with blood inside it. On December 13th, Nilo's empty stroller was pulled out of the Ohio River near the base of the Purple People Bridge. A Paw Patrol blanket with Nilo's blood on it was also found near where Nitisha's body had been. Dive teams spent hours searching the bottom of the river but came up with nothing. The search eventually stretched 180 miles across 3 states, and volunteers even sent flyers all the way downstream to Illinois. But Nilo was 3 years old, and that river just took him. Deshaun Brown was formally charged with Nitisha's murder in December of 2020. And then, by February of 2021, prosecutors went ahead and added a second murder charge for Nilo as well, even without a body being found. Ohio law says that a body is not required to charge someone with unaliving another person, as long as the other evidence is strong enough to prove that the person is dead. Between Nilo's blood on the blanket, the stroller pulled from the river, the phone records, and Brown's own statements during interrogation, there was more than enough to work with. On top of those 2 murder charges, Brown also faced a charge for what he did to Nitisha's body after she was gone, and another charge for tampering with evidence because of all the cleaning he did and the fake posts he made from her social media to hide what he had done. With all of that together, Brown was looking at the death penalty. What came after that was almost 5 full years of legal back and forth. Brown's lawyers argued that he was too mentally ill to stand trial, saying he could not understand what was happening in the courtroom. Doctors who examined him did diagnose him with a personality disorder and bipolar disorder, but multiple psychologists who spent serious time with him came to the same conclusion, which was that he was faking how bad his symptoms were. One psychologist testified in court that Brown was deliberately talking slower, mumbling, and pretending to hear voices during his evaluations, all to make himself look more out of it than he actually was. And during one of the final competency hearings in September of 2025, it also came out that Brown had been smoking K2, which is a type of fake weed that is known to mess with your mind badly, every single day while locked up. The judge still was not buying any of it, and Brown was found fully fit to stand trial. Then, in May of 2023, Brown went even further and filed his own personal motion trying to get the charge for Nilo thrown out entirely, arguing that since nobody had found a body, there was no real proof that Nilo was dead. That motion got denied because the courts agreed that the evidence they already had was more than enough to prove what happened to that little boy. Now, through all of these years of hearings and delays and legal arguments, the Lattimore family had to show up to that courthouse over and over again and sit in that room while this man tried every trick in the book to escape accountability. And it was tearing them apart in ways that are honestly hard to put into words. Nitisha's father, Roderick Lattimore, spoke publicly more than once about what this whole ordeal had done to his family.
Ever since that happened, my life is just, is not the same. My family's life, our lives have been turned upside down.
He even went on to say that the grief from losing Nitisha and Nilo had played a role in his wife passing away as well. Roderick told reporters that everything that started back in December of 2020 had likely led to a broken heart that took his wife's life too. So when you really think about it, the situation did not just take 2 lives, it took more than that. And then there was Antonio Hughes, Nilo's father, who had been carrying the weight of losing his son this whole time. In June of 2022, there was a pre-trial hearing going on about whether Brown's taped confession could be used in court. Hughes was sitting in the courtroom watching the whole thing wrap up when something in him just broke. He got up and went straight for Brown from behind.
We'll take a look at this video here as a court hearing turns violent today. The man accused of stabbing a mother to death and throwing her toddler in the Ohio River was attacked by that toddler's father. Deshaun Brown was in court for a motions hearing today. A judge allowed the use of Brown's taped confessions to the killings of Nilo and Nitisha Lattimore as evidence. But as those proceedings were wrapping up, Nilo's father, Antonio Hughes, came up behind the defendant and then punched him repeatedly. That's what you're looking at right there. Two deputies wrestled Hughes to the ground. He was still struggling as backup arrived to take him out of the courtroom.
Hughes caught a contempt of court charge and was sentenced to 7 days in jail for that, though he ended up being released before the full 7 days were up. And honestly, not a single person who watched that video could say they did not understand where he was coming from. His son was gone, the body had never been found, and the man who did it was sitting right there in front of him, acting like his legal team was going to get him out of the whole thing. That moment went all over national news, and for a lot of people watching, it was one of the most real and human things they had seen come out of the entire case. As for the confession hearing itself, the ruling went against Brown. His taped confession was allowed into evidence and would have been used against him at trial. On September 10, 2025, nearly 5 years after Nitisha was unalived in her own home and Nilo was thrown off a bridge in his stroller, Deshaun Brown stood in front of Judge Leah Dinkelhocker and pled guilty to 2 counts of aggravated murder. The remaining charges, including the ones for what he did to the body and for tampering with evidence, were dropped as part of the deal.
Do you still wish to enter a plea to count 1, aggravated murder, and count 2, aggravated murder?
Yeah.
I just need to hear you say it one more time. What is your plea to those charges?
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
What's your plea?
Yeah.
He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison with no chance of ever getting out. He avoided the death penalty through the deal, but he will never see freedom again for as long as he lives. Hamilton County Prosecutor Connie Pillage described what Brown did as ruthless and said the guilty plea spared the Lattimore family from having to go through years of appeals on top of everything else they had already been put through.
Words can't express how I feel about this monster who's trying to ask for a lower bond. I mean, he's got a lot of nerve trying to ask for a lower bond.
Roderick Lattimore, a father, a grandfather, unapologetic in his call for justice.
Deshaun Brown deserves nothing less than the death penalty. That's exactly what you deserve. No mercy at all.
Roderick Lattimore stood up in that courtroom and looked Brown in the face when it was his turn to speak. Now, this case is painful on its own, but what makes it hit even harder is that it was not the only story like this coming out of Ohio around that same time. Not long after, there was another case just about 40 miles away in Middletown that the Cincinnati community felt deeply connected to. A 6-year-old boy named James Hutchinson was dragged by a vehicle and then thrown from a bridge into the Great Miami River, which connects into the same Ohio River where Nilo was lost, and his body was never found either. People from both cities came together and held joint vigils for the 2 boys.
So we're going to kick tonight's coverage off once again with the information on 6-year-old that was killed by the hands of his own mother. Good evening. I'm Tricia Mackey.
And I'm Rob Williams. The vigil for 6-year-old James has been happening all week in Middletown, but a vigil tonight honored both James and 3-year-old Nilo, who police are looking for both of them in the Ohio River.
Sad they're looking for 2 little ones in the Ohio River.
For the 3rd day in a row, people in Middletown came together for a vigil.
Both of these beautiful little boys' lives were ended tragically and senselessly. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, this has become our reality.
But this time, candles were lit in honor of both 6-year-old James Hutchinson and 3-year-old Nilo Lattimore.
And these boys, it's hard.
Nitisha Lattimore was laid to rest at Spring Grove Cemetery in Cincinnati. Her family had to raise money from the community just to pay for her funeral and her headstone, and her uncle Marlon, who helped raise her from when she was young, said something in one of those interviews that a lot of people have not forgotten. He said that you can never fully heal from something like this, and he meant it. Nilo's case is still open on the Charlie Project, which is a national database that keeps records of missing persons in the United States. Because his body was never recovered, he is officially still listed as a missing person with suspected foul play. His family still gathers to mark his birthdays every year. In November of 2025, after Brown's sentencing was done, new surveillance footage and interrogation videos from the case were released to the public. The footage shows Brown moving through the apartment building over those 4 days after the unaliving, carrying the bag, loading it into the Uber, going through all of it like he was running some kind of sick operation. People who watched that footage described it as deeply disturbing, and honestly, that is putting it lightly. What do you think about this case? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Also, click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.